We are back. It's the Joe Holka Show presented by Line Movement. Week 6 stacks. Again, probably my favorite video of the week. That I say it every week, but my favorite video to do. It's because you want the answers to the test. You're playing tournaments on DraftKings. You're playing tournaments on FanDuel. If you're playing tournaments on FanDuel, by the way, make sure and check out the video that I did for that whole debacle that happened in week 5. But I digress. It's time to kind of go through our two main stacks. We're also going to build some teams with the community that would go directly into the DraftKings Millionaire Maker. So always a lot of fun to go through that. If you want to join us live, make sure you come hang out with us Mondays, Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern time. That's when we go through all of this together as a group. So the chat's going to help me out a little bit here as we get to the lineup portion of this. But one thing that I always want to go through, it's the data sheet at linemovement.com. This is something we make available for free. Linemovement.com, resources tab, NFL data table. This is what I'm using to build my lineups. Obviously, we get ownership projections and a bunch of other stuff that populates throughout the week. But today, I want to tell you guys the first stack that I'm on. It is indeed, and a couple people mentioned it earlier in the chat that I guess I'm not that, mysterious. I do like the Kirk Cousins stack. I like this Minnesota Vikings spot against Atlanta a lot. But hear me out. Normally, if you've been listening to my content for a long time, you'll know that I really do try and get quarterbacks that give me a little bit of rushing up opportunity. Kirk Cousins does not fit that bill, but he does fit a few things that I think are extremely valuable. So average intended air yards, a quarterback that throws the ball deep down the field when he does throw down the field. So volume's a concern for Kirk Cousins. Of course, this team, they want to run, but no Dalvin Cook. Obviously, Madison's going to come in and be probably a factor right away for fantasy, for DFS, all of those things. But I think that Kirk Cousins is in a pretty good spot here. This Atlanta team defensively is not good. This team total, like Vegas is on board with Minnesota, for the record. A minus 3.5 favorite at home, according to blitzbet.eu. I think that's a little bit, shameful is not the right word. I think it's a little bit aggressive to think that if you were to give, obviously no fans, so people were talking about giving the home team about 2 points on the Vegas spread. I think that's a little bit disrespectful for a Vikings team against Atlanta at home. To say that they're a 1 point better than Atlanta, I don't really buy that. So these are my tiebreakers. So Kirk Cousins, yes, he doesn't run. He'll throw deep. So we got one bad thing, one good thing. One thing that I think is really valuable when looking at stacks overall is a condensed target share. So we know where Kirk Cousins is going with the ball, right? He's going to Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen, 7,300. He leads the slate in weighted opportunity rating. So this is something that I think is the most important metric at the wide receiver position by far. It's a mixture of target market share and market share of air yards. 7,300 for Adam Thielen. I think he's going to end up being popular for sure. Hopefully we get some fight on the other side of this game so we can go back and forth a little bit. But that target share for Adam Thielen is just something else. So with no Dalvin Cook, I would expect that Cousins is going to lean on him even a little bit more. But I also like the other side. And I'm talking about Jefferson, the other side of the field, I guess I should say. I like Jefferson quite a bit. I think that if you were one of those people that earlier in the season was like, don't draft rookies in season long, you've been wrong so far for sure. Look at guys like Ruggs, Judy, who else? Lamb. There's a ton of guys that have been doing really well, and Justin Jefferson is one of them. I think it sometimes takes these rookies, I guess, a little bit longer to adapt, but I do feel pretty good about Justin Jefferson, even at 6K in this spot against Atlanta. 0.5 weighted opportunity, still decent, top 25 on the slate. So it's not like he's completely overpriced. That's kind of like my big concern with the stack overall is that if you were to add Madison to it, Madison's expensive, guys. 7,200. There was times where we would get these backup running backs and we would get them at a much cheaper price point overall. But they just price these guys up so much at this point that it's really hard to get there. It is. So if we're going to go with Thielen and we're going to go with Jefferson with our Kirk Cousins stack, I prefer going the tight end route versus adding Madison to the stack. So we have Irv Smith. He's at the Stoneman 2,500. So I think that this guy overall is not a $2,500 asset, in my opinion, for a couple of reasons. So we know that team total is extremely important at tight end, one of the highest team totals on the slate. So Irv Smith, last week, 5 targets. He's running a lot more snaps recently. He's someone that when he's out there, he's not doing a ton of blocking. He's out there to run routes. So it's not the best by any means, but just looking at this, he's still running about 15 and a half routes per game, which is solid. And I think it's a spot where we would get some savings so that on the other side of the stack, we can get in Calvin Ridley. I think if we play Irv Smith, it's still reasonable to get to Calvin Ridley on the other side of the stack. At 7,800 for, again, this Minnesota defense that's been a little bit better. I'll say this, it's a young defense. It has been a little bit better last week in particular. But I think that's still the bring back I want on Atlanta. Calvin Ridley, 0.7 weighted opportunity rating. This Minnesota team can be beat all over the field, but I still think that they're 27th ranked DVOA overall. I want to try and figure out a way to play Thielen, Calvin Ridley. Irv Smith makes it happen. So that's where I'm at. That's stack number 1. And I'm going to try and see if the chat can quickly give me what they think is the next stack. We do 2 every week, and then we build some teams on DraftKings. So the first stack, just to recap, Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen, Jefferson, Irv Smith, bringing it back with Calvin Ridley. So it'll be interesting to see, I guess, where this ownership goes. I guess what I'm hoping happens is that we see a little bit of the ownership condense on Madison. People just trying to capture everything from what Dalvin Cook left behind. So that's the thought process. Hopefully fade that chalk, but we'll see. This video comes out a little bit earlier in the week, so we'll see if Minnesota ends up being super popular. If they do, you're going to have to get a little bit different on some of your one-offs, but I do think it's a situation where we could see Cousins forced to throw a little bit more than maybe he's comfortable with overall. So I'm on that for sure. The next stack that we're going to talk about here, drum roll. All right. I still think that you guys aren't willing to believe it, but I'm going to go with Deshaun Watson, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, and I'm going to bring it back with A.J. Brown. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm on the wrong segment. There we go. Deshaun Watson is still 7K. He's still someone that is running. He's someone that I think is undervalued because he hasn't had that complete smash spot overall. This is not a great week at quarterback. I considered going with the Miami stack. There just wasn't an option on the Jets that I loved. I considered a couple different things, honestly. I considered that. I considered the other game that I really like, and we mentioned this a couple of times, is Jacksonville and Detroit. So I think all of those options are some other stack options that you could go to. But I can't just bring you guys the chalk every week on this segment. So Deshaun Watson, he's 7K. Matt Harmon mentioned it earlier today that he thinks that the fact that Cooks just completely went off, it was basically a win for team math for sure, because the data said that he was basically getting all of these air yards, just not realizing all of them just yet. He goes completely crazy. But I think that the way, you almost have to rethink the way people are thinking right now in terms of DFS overall. There's some people that they got their Brandon Cooks game. They might not go back to him this week because they think it was a fluke. He dropped a goose egg 2 weeks ago, right? He can completely disappear. So I kind of like the Brandon Cooks idea of going back to him at 5K. I think it's totally fine. Will Fuller, 6,800. He's pretty expensive for sure, but both of these guys, a 0.5 weighted opportunity rating. We know that they're going to get high value targets, even if they end up moving Cooks into the slot for a few more. I think that's someone that I think still makes a ton of sense overall. If you wanted to add someone to this stack, the main thing that I want to know is Aiken's going to be back, because I think we can go back to Fells. Fells is someone that, again, this total is reasonable at 24. So that's what we want, a tight end. We want cheap tight ends, ideally, ones that have the chance to possibly score touchdowns in high team total environments. So I do really like the idea of Fuller and Cobb for sure. The bring back A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown is someone that I think that we have to take advantage of the price, because obviously they played on Tuesday Night Football. So there wasn't an ability for him to really get priced up from after having that game. But here's the thing, guys. I expect Derrick Henry. We don't have a lot of running backs to pay out for right now on the main slate. I expect Derrick Henry at 7,300 to be very popular. So that's how I'm trying to think through these stacks. Again, I always want to tell you guys, it's not about finding the best plays. There's tons of plays. They're easy to find the best ones. But how do I beat others? It's by finding the chalk, figuring out ways to leverage that chalk into a different scenario. And to me, I think that if Derrick Henry ends up being really popular at 7,300, I kind of want to be on the other side of that completely. And to me, that's the Houston side of the ball. And it's going with A.J. Brown as a bringback. I think that one really works for me personally. So A.J. Brown, he's someone 0.6 weighted opportunity rating. He's someone that we just saw like have a fantastic game on Tuesday night. I guess, can we even call that prime time? I don't know if we can. So A.J. Brown, he's so cheap, guys. 5,600 for A.J. Brown. 9 targets last week. 7 receptions for 82 and a score, but he had 2 targets in the red zone. So he's someone that his usage is just so valuable. I think that A.J. Brown, like people forget how explosive this guy was last year, I should say. This game could have some fireworks in my opinion. So I really like the idea of both of these stacks. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm wrong, for sure. Always willing to be wrong. Let me know what your favorite stack is. If you don't like the Minnesota stack or if you don't like the Houston stack, always want to see your guys' perspectives when it comes to that sort of thing. But now what we're going to do is, and I think this has been kind of a nice addition, we're going to build a couple lineups for the Millionaire Maker based around these stacks. So let's start with the Minnesota-Atlanta stack. I think one of the best ways to kind of build some of these tournament teams is start with your stack first. So Kirk Cousins, we talked about Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson. We talked about Irv Smith at Stone Min to take care of tight end. That's one thing that I like to do also with my stack. If you can take care of tight end, I think that's a great thing to do. If you're just adding to your correlation and getting rid of the position that is not great overall, and this is a week where I think if you're paying all the way up for Andrews, fine. But I think there's a clear drop off after that. So let's see if we can make a Ridley team work as well. Let's put him in the wide receiver slot. Okay, so what we need now is we're gonna need some value. So let's figure out if there is what would be the cheapest running back play you guys would entertain in this one. I heard some people talking a little bit about Devonta Freeman. I prefer Gaskin, personally. And this is, if you're watching this video later, this is a play that I think is reliant on if Howard plays again. If Howard doesn't play, I think Gaskin at 5,400 is very strong overall. So I like him quite a bit. If we're just looking at just a couple slots left, unfortunately, one of my favorite defense plays, shout out to Doozy in the chat, was the Vikings at 2,300. So we're not going to have that. Maybe we'll play that on our other one. What are some other cheap defenses, guys? We could fill out another slot first. Someone in the chat mentioned Ronald Jones. Yeah, I think Ronald Jones at 6K is really solid. I'm trying to figure out the best way. We only have 46 or 49, so we need another cheap guy for sure. I want to figure out a way to play Mike Davis, but I don't know if we're going to be able to do it. So let's put Mike Davis in. Let's put a cheap defense in. Let's go with... what do you guys think about Bengals at 2,100? Maybe Rivers gets sat, and we got Jacoby Brissett because he takes a lot of sacks. I don't hate that one. That might be one of the stronger ones to me. Texans, I don't mind the Texans against. Maybe we'll do this. We'll just play the defense on the other side, kind of hedge out our stacks. Let's just do that for fun for now. So flex, we got 5,200. Chenault, Jonnu Smith. We could just toss in a Jonnu Smith, but I would prefer, I mean, in a perfect world, still to play a running back here. Is there anyone at 5,200 that we like? I think this is outside my range. Is there anyone just above this? Oh, 5,800 for Montgomery. That's a reason to pay down. So if we play Montgomery 5,800, we got 2,100 at defense. It's Bengals D season. So I think this would be the lineup that I think makes some sense. And I think it gives us a ton of leverage. So that'll be our first one. We still have our volume in here with Mike Davis and Montgomery. We have our main stack that we still made work. Gaskin in there. We think that's still going to see volume. And then we got like the cheapest defense on the slate. I like that quite a bit. All right. So let's go with let's build our next one. So I think that we have some people that probably didn't think I was going to go the Houston route. So that makes me happy. Watson, Fuller, Cooks, bringing it back with A.J. Brown. Do we have any news on Akins yet? Let's see. Concussion limited in Wednesday's practice. Logged 2-minute practices before interactive. Unclear how much progress he's made. He is out of the concussion protocol. Full seed practice on Monday would dismiss the question marks. Okay, interesting. Fells. So it's probably thin. I'm going to leave it out for now because I don't want to just fall into that trap. Let's just throw in, let's just for fun. Maybe we're just all in on Irv Smith this week. We could just play the Stoneman tight end. I don't hate that, for the record. I think he's like pretty strong at Stoneman in a game where we think there's going to be passing, or we think there's going to be points, I should say. So Houston, Tennessee, we're leveraging Derrick Henry, so he's out for me. We might just build some inverse teams. Maybe we go with Madison, Davis. Defense, we'll play the Vikings with Madison as a stack. Now we got 6,600 at our flex. Gets us Sanders, Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquise Brown, Andrews, Taylor. Kind of a weird range. It's not the best range, that's for sure. So if we don't play Mike Davis, what if we go Montgomery here? Does that get us to a stronger option? Probably does. 7,800 now. We could go Aaron Jones against Tampa Bay. No one's going to have that. I think that one really strong way to kind of leverage by using lower owned running backs is ones that we still know are going to see volume overall. So I kind of like the Aaron Jones one-off play here. It gives us late swap equity as well at 7,600. I think this is pretty strong overall. I think we're going to go with that. How do you guys feel about those teams? Let me know in the comments what you guys think. If you haven't already, I would love it if you consider subscribing to the channel. Toss a like on this video also. And definitely check out the podcast feed. I'm doing my best to make sure all of these videos get into podcast form on Apple Podcasts. So drop me a rating and review if you think you've gotten some value here. Mondays, Wednesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern time, we stream. So if you want to be a part of this lineup building process, we would love to have you. Also, Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time. That's the big show. That's when we go through all the positions as a community, go through a bunch of start-sit stuff as well. And then the Line Movement YouTube channel, that's where all my other shows are throughout the week. So if you haven't seen the Tilt Space yet at 6:30, would love it if you'd join me, Peter Overzet, Mike Leone. Last week we played the Thunderdome, the $5,300 entry on DraftKings, which is a lot of fun. Not sure the exact tournament we're playing this week, but we will be kind of going up in stakes a little bit as we've been on a heater. Up to 60K for our bankroll for the year, started at 15. So hopefully we can just keep this thing going for you guys, and I will see you on Sunday.